It's about time.
But you know, it's not a real month actually making fucking videos. Until you got an official hat. It's time for the obligatory Avengers Endgame video on today, day 1 of MIAMAFV 2!
Big Dick is back in town!
Bring me the back!
Because I'm an idiot!
Alright people, let's get down to it. I saw Avengers Endgame a couple of days ago, and it's time we talk about it. As I'm sure you know, I made a Wiagwa about Avengers Infinity War several months ago, and it's time for the follow-up, baby! Spoilers everywhere, and I don't fucking care. And you know, I can't help but start here. In a comparison between the two, Infinity War and Endgame, which of the two is better? It's Infinity War by a country fucking mile. And not to rehash it too much, you can go watch my Wiagwa on it, but the reason why Infinity War was so good was because it was the character study of Thanos. We learn about the totally justifiable reasons why he's a genocidal monster. But seriously, I think most people, if they're being honest with themselves, can empathize with the motivations of Thanos, where he's just trying to make the world a better place. He had a personal issue when he was young, his people got wiped out by overpopulation and all that bullshit, and he's trying to overcorrect that issue on a cosmic scale, which is what made his emotional arc over Infinity War so cathartic. Yes, he was wrong, obviously, who cares? Point is, it was very interesting to study him. It was like, oh yeah, bad people have motivations for why they do these things. It's almost like we should try to understand them. Nah, that sounds like dog whistling. And so the reason I say all this is because I had very high expectations for character motivations, and as you should definitely know, I have not been a fan of the Marvel movies, in no way, shape, or form. But Infinity War was so purely utilitarian that I went out of my way to watch it, and I loved it. However, I am sorry to report that there is much less utilitarian thinking in Endgame. Less philosophical content. Just the good guys beat the bad guy. The story jumps around a little bit, but basically it starts with a tiny little arc at the beginning where right after the snap happens, our remaining heroes go find Thanos. As we know, he was farming and doing all that cool shit, and they fucking murder his ass in cold blood after finding out that he destroyed the Infinity Stones, so there's no way to use them to bring everybody back. This is like emotional implications for the characters, blah blah blah, who cares? What I like seeing is right after that, the 5-year time skip, where we get to see an Earth ravaged by half of its population destroyed. Although I must say, they did a fairly poor job with conveyance that this has really been that big of an issue. I mean, the Fortnite servers are still running, so how bad could things possibly be? Mostly you get people crying, like at Captain America's Veterans meeting. Anyway, like I said, I have no connection to most of these characters. I'm a Thanos boy for life. So we see them all sad about everybody dying, and apparently society is doing somewhat worse. I'll take their word for it. It's pretty cool though when Ant-Man comes back, having been trapped in like a subatomic universe for him only a few seconds, so the snap totally passed him by. And now he's back and like, whoa, 5 years have changed. Looks like everybody died. I missed a big oopsie. Seeing him walk around with like sad kids and overgrown neighborhoods and shit like that, that was pretty cool. Probably my favorite like emotional conveyance of the movie. The Avengers are split up, they've all gone their separate ways. Oh no. Point is, when Ant-Man shows up, they can get their show moving again and use the subatomic universe. They get Iron Man back, who didn't want to join up, but they prove that time travel is possible, you guys, and so they can use time travel to the past, aka an alternate dimension, steal the old Infinity Stones, and use them in this time to save the day. They know there's a lot of nerds in the fucking audience, so they made sure to hit us with that important time travel lore, that this is a universe where you cannot change what has happened. All they can do is this 5-year later period, they can bring back the people who were killed back then. 5 years will have passed, but it's a lot better than nothing. So the movie is, as they say, a time heist, and it was pretty cool. I'm sure this was a lot of fan service for people who actually watch these fucking movies because they have to go to the specific times where the Infinity Stones were throughout the cinematic universe. And you know, I must say, I'm impressed that they built up to this over the like 11-year run of this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just looking at it as an outsider, not understanding the context, but seeing that, oh wow, in each of these moments, like this was a movie where like the Tesseract was here and the fucking Time Stone was over here. It's just impressive filmmaking that they organized all this, so that's pretty cool. I'm always skeptical of time travel stories, but since they established the rules up front, and it was used effectively, like using it to give, and I a trip back to the past so he could live out his life from like the 50s or whenever he got lost from. I've got to say, I've always been thinking like, wow, life must really suck for Captain America. The times have fucking changed and everything and everyone he knew is gone because he's from the fucking past. And it seemed like not a lot of people talk about that, but I always felt like that must really suck for him. But anyway, he gets his happy ending when he gets to go back in time and be with the girl he loved all along, so that's fucking great. He was just such a sweet old man. I fucking love that shit. However, I just want to juxtapose, consider the choices they made in writing the script. So the whole time travel thing was used relatively well. It made sense. But just consider, they chose to do this path in the script instead of having like a quest to either chase down Thanos to reclaim the gauntlet, or maybe do a Dragon Ball Z style hunt for the scattered Infinity Stones if Thanos had scattered them again or something. Because this approach would have at least kept the same Thanos as our main villain, because losing him at the beginning of the movie was a big blow to me, this being my favorite character. And I'm sure some people don't mind that it's alternate universe time travel Thanos as the villain. To them, they're like, oh, it's the same guy, no big difference. But that's really not true. Finishing your galactic conquest, murdering your daughter, completing your life's purpose, and then settling down to be a farmer, that'll change a man. And I wanted to know more of his life feelings. Like, I get that it's not super fascinating for an action, high-stakes superhero movie like this, but god damn it, I'm fascinated by Thanos, and I don't give a fuck about any of these other characters. And the approach they went with of time travel, I mean, of course, it introduced all kinds of bullshit things. Like, before I said that Captain America went back in time and got to live out his years undercover. Now, I get that for this to make sense, what Captain America would have to do living through all those years, all the previous Avengers movies, those apocalyptic events that happened, that Captain America just sat on the sidelines and did nothing. Because he had to do that to preserve the timeline. But I mean, is that really something our boy Cap would do? It's really hard to imagine that it is, because it kind of makes him seem like a fucking coward. But I guess it's true. I don't know, maybe he worked in some like covert ops. Maybe he did like a Teen Titans sort of thing so they wouldn't know it was him and he could still be a hero. God, I hope that's the case. And yeah, I know he's an old man now. He might not have been able to help with the last couple movies, but like everything from like the 50s up to like the 80s, he would have been good to go, right? He should have been involved in those fucking superhero world-changing events. Fuck. Anyway, what the fuck do you want from me? At the end, they go back in time, they get the fucking stones, they come to the future, and they assemble the fucking gauntlet. Hulk wears it. He snaps his fucking fingers and everybody's okay again. And during the time travel thing, Thanos and his boys come through the portal, blah, blah, blah. We have a big fight with alt-universe Thanos and his crew. But with the power of grit and gumption, our lads win the day with their newly revived allies. Hooray! I appreciated some of the emotional moments that some of the characters went through on their quest to get back the stones. Like, I thought the Hawkeye Black Widow moment was pretty great. Hawkeye becoming like an edgy evil assassin guy because his whole family got ghosted by Thanos. That's just bad fucking luck, dude, and he went full Punisher. I liked that him and Black Widow, as the two kind of normal people, had their little quest to get the Soul Stone. And their emotional struggle about Natasha feeling like this is everything that her life has built up to, and she's happy to sacrifice her life to get the Soul Stone. You have to sacrifice a person to get the Soul Stone. She's got nobody. She's been alone her whole life. She was in charge of the Avengers by herself and had nothing else giving her any purpose. Versus Hawkeye, who does have something to live for if he can bring his family back, but feels corrupted by the things that he's done and feels that he deserves to die for it. Black Widow has not done shit on that same level, at least not recently that I know of. The fight they have about who's gonna die is a little bit hokey, but finally when Black Widow dies, that actually managed to get to me. Especially with the words that she had said. This was the one note I took in the theater watching the movie. Turning on my screen and blinding all the other viewers. I don't judge people on their worst mistakes. Black Widow. The fact that Hawkeye had a family to live for and was willing to make up for the stuff that he'd done, the criminals he'd perhaps been overzealous in punishing. I gotta say, if there's one thing I think our culture needs more of, it's forgiveness. And that goes for everybody, including me. For me, that was the emotional high point of the movie. For sure. I may have gotten a little misty, but I'll never tell. Tony Stark meeting his dad in the past was cool, but again, I don't give a fuck about most of these characters, so, like, I got the emotions I was supposed to feel, and I too have daddy issues, so I was into it. But, you know, just another scene of a grown-ass man meeting his adult dad and doing their little bonding thing. It was fine. But of course, I knew it was building up to his eventual death. I mean, the signs have been everywhere, people. So many contracts haven't been renewed. I think Robert Downey Jr. said that he doesn't want to do any more Avengers shit. But seeing Tony, who I think we all know is the real main character of the Avengers, seeing him in his tricky-dicky ways steal the fucking gems from Thanos at the pivotal moment, and then use his snap to kill all the bad guys and save the day. That was pretty good. And you know, he's leaving behind his wife and daughter who he loves so much. That's fucking sad shit. And he died in the most heroic way possible. So I gotta give a big F in chat to our boy Tony. Rest well, metal man. Although, not to nitpick too much, but I was wondering, in Infinity War, wasn't there kind of a big deal about the making of the gauntlet that the Infinity Stones would sit in? Is that no longer important? Because Iron Man glove here seemed like it did the job just fine, which enabled that last minute save by Tony when he activated Iron Man magic to steal the fucking gems onto his. Again, there's a couple silly little plot things, but I don't frankly give a shit. I thought it was pretty good anyway. And my only final note on the subject has to do with, feminism. You know, I must say, I was expecting this ending to be a lot worse. And by that I mean, I thought that Brie Larson as Captain Marvel was going to save the day apropos of nothing. Her inclusion is so strange in this movie. She shows up in the beginning, helps them find Thanos, they kill him, nothing is accomplished, so she fucking leaves, and then through the entire events of the main movie, she's uninvolved because she's away in Spaceland. And when she finally comes back for the final battle, yes, she does do some powerful moves and clearly is the strongest physical member of the Avengers. But at the end, she loses to Thanos, and it's Tony who has to save the day. And again, this is to the movie's credit, because the last thing as a patriarchal white male I want to see is a woman save anyone. I'm completely serious. But no, like I said, Tony Stark is clearly like the main character. If anyone should get the heroic victory, it should be him, right? And the way that they wrote it, Marvel's inclusion wasn't even necessary because it's Tony's snap that destroys all the enemies. Marvel just had an incidental role along the way. If Thanos had kept that glove, they would have been fucked no matter what. And so I just want to salute the movie for prioritizing the characters that the viewers really do care about, or at least have had the most time to get invested in, especially the big triple fight of Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man against Thanos. Now, to me, it seemed a little bit strange that Thanos was strong enough to face the three at once without any of the Infinity Stones, but you know what? I'll let that slide. He's really big, you guys, really big. But back on the subject of feminism, I did want to just reiterate that I don't feel that feminism ruined this movie, as I think a couple people feared. And, you know, there was a conspiracy going around, I don't know, maybe it's fucking true, that there were two endings to this movie plan, one that was more focused on Captain Marvel, and one that was less so. This certainly feels less so. So if that's true, I mean, I'd be curious to know what that was, but God, I'm glad they went with this, other consequences aside. But my boy, you know they had to do it. You know they had to fucking do it. There's the one moment in the giant war scene where just inexplicably all the female Avenger allies all get together and do their assault and do their sick poses at the same time. Look, all I'm saying is that does not make sense how that would happen on the battlefield. So this was just clearly something probably non-diegetic, done for us as the viewers to be like, wow, I love women. Yes, queen. And you know what? You slay, queen. You know, girl power, like Gwyneth Paltrow has, whose sole superpower is the Iron Man suit that Tony, daddy, made for her. Talk about empowerment, she really did it all on her own. Does it count as a superpower to fuck so good that Iron Man gives you superpowers? Regardless of that, that's all I have to say about Avengers Endgame! I think this movie was a little more for the core fans, and I'm sure it was an absolute delight for fans who've watched all the movies. But for outsiders like me, there was a lot less to sink my teeth into. I appreciated the emotional highs, of which there were quite a few. And I mean, obviously the action was really cool and looked super sick. And you know, I guess I'll give a shout out to the fucking comedy, cause Fat Thor, pretty funny. I definitely did not see it coming, and I enjoyed looking back at all the trailers and stuff and seeing that in no way was Fat Thor hinted at all. So I'll give him that. You pulled a fast one on me. Anyway, it's time to wrap this motherfucker up, people. This has been day one of MIAMAFV 2. Are you liking it so far? Is it what you wanted? Well, let's find out what happens tomorrow. That's the fun! Although before I go, there's one last thing that I wanted to gripe about, which was just, why is it so hard to find these Infinity Stones in the first place? I mean, I went down to Joanne's today and collected like 1,000,000 of them. It's not even hard, bro. I mean, look at all these fucking Infinity Stones. I'm swimming in them. I mean, if we're throwing out the rules anyway, I mean, this many Infinity Stones ought to be good for, you know, killing twice the people in the universe. Well, let's see how this goes. Half of you will be alive and half of you will be double dead on tomorrow's MIAMAFV 2. Here we go. You know, those Avengers guys went through some tough times, but none of them faced anything like this. Oh my god. Holy shit. This is the true cost of MIAMAFV 2.